Gemini speaks, Gemini speaks, boom, 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 boom. So, what makes life worth the effort we put into it? What makes it good or bad? What makes it our life? What makes it our life? For me, this has been a major question and a major challenge for many, 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 many years. Most of my 20s, and I would say most of my 30s, I was very much involved in creating a vision of what I thought other people wanted me to be. Whatever the vision that my parents implanted in me, what a fulfilling life should be, what it should look like. Today, I am trying to live intuitively, which means being very self-aware. It did require some sort of very painful awakening and shedding that other person was living someone else's life. A disconnect from who I was as a soul self, who I am. This in a way was a delusion, and the self that I'm trying to live today is more authentic, or really authenticity, but still developing. So what is the point? This evening I'm just wondering, what is the point? And I'm going to share with you, I should say, what the point is for me. Well, the point of happiness for me is trying to really live intuitively, really trying to listen to my heart, really trying to be honest with myself, really trying to, it's being selective about where I live, selective about how I live, energetic purpose to most things that I do. Important things, not small things, but even the small things are purpose. So my self-care is connected to so many things. My self-care is connected to ultimately my happiness, but my self-care is also connected to love, and the love that I give to myself is how I relate and deal with other people. The things that I say, the way I understand them, the way to see them, the way in a true sense, not in the sense of my false self. And this is still a daily thing. It requires some mindfulness for me to be true to myself so that when I say something, it's authentic. When I say something, it's true for me, not what I want someone else to hear, not because I want to be liked, so I say what I think is going to be palatable for other people. Worried so much about offending them, but you don't have to be offensive to be true to yourself. But you can confidently disagree. You can confidently say, well, this is what it is for me. This is what I like to do for me, without apologizing and without feeling any sense of guilt, without being a people pleaser that is going to falsify my authenticity. It's going to falsify what it is innately, intuitively, my life itself, how that would look. So that might also include the way that I dress, might also include my style, my everything. All of them come together for me to be happy, to feel a sense of joy, to feel a sense of peace, for me to be in the world as it is through my vision, as it is through my understanding. And there's really no wrong way to express yourself in life. However, there are wiser ways. There are perhaps healthier ways. There are also ways that enhance and fulfill your life so that you have this moment, mostly. You have still moments of stress, you still have moments of angst, moments of misunderstanding, and all of those things are intrinsic to life, the dichotomy of the human experience, and that is not the problem. But we often get caught in patterns, especially we get caught in unhealthy patterns. We get caught in patterns with others. Usually it's some past experience that we're trying to fix by doing it again and again and again. But the good news is that intuitive self tells you what is the right thing to do. What is the path for you? This life that you have in this moment is there to guide you. We are not normally in tune to it to make these decisions in our best interest, because we have conditioning that is very powerful. We have a sense of the self, which is usually false, and it's very powerful. We learn it from a very young age, And sometimes we cannot distinguish the difference, but it's intuitive and it's there happening all the time. The more we're out of touch with it, the more opportunity there is to have burdensome experience of life, a constant sense of dissatisfaction, a constant sense of climbing up the hill, climbing up the hill, climbing up the hill, when life is not actually climbing up the hill. There's really no hill. There are moments of adjustment, there's moments of change, there are moments of aha, there are moments of maybe not so much, but those moments are imperative to your having a situation that mirrors back to you what is really happening, mirrors back to you who you are, mirrors back to you where you should be going, mirrors back to you that perhaps there's some misunderstanding and it's happening all the time. So the purpose is to discover the true self, the intuitive self, the one that knows things that we think we don't know. A lot of people have a lot of pain in their life. A lot of people have a lot of sadness and depression in their lives. A lot of confusion, a lot of chaos that, believe it or not, if you're suffering from trauma that shifts you in some way, every experience is something that you can learn from. And every experience will reflect back to you, your intuitive self. It gives you many, many opportunities to see within your own knowing. This knowing is really what can guide you to joy. This knowing is really what can guide you to peace. This knowing will guide you to love. This knowing is really what will guide you on the path that is innately your path, that is innately you. How do we do that? How do we authentically express ourselves? How do we know our true happiness when we are so lost in our pattern? Those patterns are happening habitually. Many times we're not even aware that we're creating these patterns. And even when we have those moments where we're like, oh, I'm creating this pattern, changing those patterns, breaking those patterns are very difficult to do. So these are just ideas that I'm putting out there. What I'm saying somehow taps into an aha moment. I'm hoping that aha moment is something you can build upon. And you can look at yourself and say, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this other thing, and actually I'm choosing these patterns, and actually I am choosing this life that is not working for me. And then you hopefully get to a moment and ask yourself, why am I choosing this? And the journey is to find out the reason that you're going to be able to change this pattern, to have enough self-awareness to stop yourself from continuing along the path that you don't want to be on. Of doing the same thing over and over and over and over, and then blaming something outside of yourself for your situation. At some point you're choosing. If you're not getting help for yourself or you're not seeking the answers, then you're choosing. So we're watching ourselves do the very thing we do not want to do. I'm only speaking from personal experience. If you can relate to that, great. I am sharing with you how it worked for me, how it works for me. I have to make some hard choices sometimes for my own good. Not everyone is going to benefit if I choose to do something that is going to be a positive enhancement in my life. Not everyone is going to be on board with that. Not everyone is going to understand that. Not everyone is going to benefit from that, because you are not here to provide benefits for everyone. Now, if you have a child and you have to take care of that child, then ultimately they benefit from your own growth. Because if you grow in a way, then you can teach that to your child. So it's not to say that life is perfect. It's not to say that you don't feel pain. All of those things are still happening because, like I said, the human experience is a dichotomy, right? So there are many things going on at one time, which is life itself, right? As the experience of living in your body, interacting with everything around you. People, the weather, your job, many, many things are potentially affecting you in some way. Sometimes negatively, sometimes in a neutral way, sometimes positively. It's how you take those things in that makes a big difference. Whatever perspective it is that you have becomes a part of that experience. You define it that way. So if you don't see it as something being negative, then it's not negative. So here you are looking trying to discover your unique life. There's only one energy that is you. At least that is the you that you can only verify this moment's experience of this life that you have. Not some life you had in the past, not some life you may have in the future. We don't really know. But we do know this moment. And in this moment, we have to identify some way what it is we're doing. What is the purpose of what we're doing? What is the drive for what we're doing? Now, many people just go along their lives. They work, they retire, they have the experience of being retired, then they have the experience of aging, and then they die. And within that experience, there's some religion, there's family, there are relationships, many times they're dysfunctional, there is a conditioned idea of love. There's all this happening, and it's very common. It happens in many cultures, and it happens for billions of people. But there is a small amount of people who are experiencing what I'm talking about, living more intuitively, seeking a life as the self as you really are, not the false self. The false self is sort of a mask. So the false self identifies itself as female. It identifies itself with a race. It identifies itself with gender roles. It identifies itself with some sort of religious understanding. It identifies itself with a cultural understanding. It identifies itself with many, many outside things, which has its benefit and it has its purpose. It may also have its function for you in whatever world you're in. But it is more of a tool than it is reality. In reality, you are none of those things. In reality, you are just life itself. In reality, you are energy. In reality, you are far more simple than we make ourselves out to be. Our personality is something that is developed out of our experience, our experiential self. But our true self, our intuitive self, is simpler than that. We are just life expressing itself in this human form with all of those other factors I just spoke about. Culture, race, all of those things in fact aren't even real. We tell ourselves it's real because we're living it in a sense and it seems real, but really there's no such thing as race. Really, there's no such thing as gender. There's a biology that is a man and that is a woman, and sometimes there's a biology that is a man and a woman. But it is a physical thing. We define it in different ways. We define it in a way that fits into culture. We define it in a way that fits into religion. But it's still a delusion. It still is not real. You are not really a woman and women do this. You are not really a man and men do this. You might have a male anatomy. You might have a female anatomy as far as reproductive organs. But that does not, in and of itself, it does not define you as a living energy, as a living thing, having a human experience. So I hope that the aha moment is to say, what is my intuitive voice telling me about my purpose in life? What is my intuitive voice telling me about how I should be expressing myself in this life, as far as where I live, as far as what I do, as far as what I say, as far as what I feel, as far as what I think, as far as how I feel about many, many things. Love, anger, hate. And by the way, a lot of these things are fleeting. And we need to understand that they're fleeting. So I might feel sad in this moment, but that does not mean I am sad. And language actually says a lot about the delusion. And some other languages are more clear about it. Like in Spanish, you don't say, I am hungry. You say, I have hunger. You can live more intuitively. Living more intuitively may mean making some sacrifice. There will be, or I should say there may be, but most likely there will be, some very painful transitional experience because you're going to let that false self die. And in the death of the false self, like the birth of a child, there's a painful awakening to the true self, the birth of the true self. And it doesn't happen in one moment. It is a long process Who is to say how long it's going to take? Because every person is different. It could get interrupted. I mean, there's many things that could be factors that affect that experience of awakening. And when I say awakening, there's many different ways that people use awakening. But my awakening that I'm speaking of is being in touch with your intuitive self, your deep core self-awareness, connection to who you really are and what really generates a sense of joy, a sense of completeness, a sense of happiness, a sense of knowing. There's no guessing because your intuitive self has the answers. And somehow that intuitive self may be connected to something greater than something that most of us understand. You're able to make decisions for your life through it. And the more you make decisions through that intuitiveness, more peace you will experience. The more tolerance you will have because you will realize that when something bothers you, when something may make you angry, or when something may make you frustrated or irritable, those moments will be shorter because you intuitively are living. And so you know that this isn't personal. You can only be responsible for your own experience. You can only be responsible for your response to outside stimuli. Okay, it's not personal. So if someone says something to you that hurts your feelings, your perception of what they said is what hurts, not actually what they said. Words are powerful. They don't have meaning on their own. And in giving meaning to them, we give power to them because words cannot hurt you. We all know that expression. And it's true. They only hurt you how you take it personal. We have these things are happening moment to moment. There's an inner voice that is telling us, actually, we should be doing this. But instead, no, we do that. And we do that. And we do that. And the voice will come up again and say, but actually, you should be doing this. It'll even say, this is why you should be doing this. You'll look at it for a second, and you'll look at this, and you'll keep doing that. This is different, but that is familiar. And familiar, even if it's painful, is easier than doing what's unfamiliar, because unfamiliar is something that is unknown. We're not sure what's going to happen, and not knowing, we get afraid. Another thing that occurs when you live intuitively is there is a lot less fear, and even when the fear comes, you have to have a moment of trust and faith in your own intuitive self's knowing. You have to believe in your own intuitive self, trust in it, and do what intuitively you know you should do. It might cause you pain, but intuitively you know what the answer is. Do you want to do what the answer is the question. So tonight I just wanted to share with you my experience of how it is that I am focused on expressing myself intuitively, how listening to my intuitive voice is guiding my life right now. I know that there's going to be some sacrifice for me. I know there's going to be some people who are not going to be supportive because they don't understand how it is I'm trying to express my life. Because you're trying to express your life in this way, most people who are not expressing their lives in this way will not understand. They might say you're selfish. They might say there's something wrong with you. You're mentally ill or you're unstable. And you'll hear these voices, and you'll have to remember that in living through your true intuitive self, they want you to have the same false idea of yourself. But you are shedding that person, the shedding that you're doing, which might feel like a rejection of what they're doing, is not their business. Your business, your personal business. You are responsible for your own happiness. You are responsible for understanding your own sense of joy. You are responsible for hearing your own intuitive, innate voice that is going to guide you to live authentically. That voice will take you to your unique path. It will take you exactly where you need to go. And everywhere you went before that was also exactly where you needed to go, because it helped you get to this moment where you can hear that voice, and you will allow that voice to get louder and louder and louder so that it's no longer a whisper, but it becomes actually your voice, and it is crystal clear. That's what Gemini has to speak about. Thanks so much for coming. I hope you got something out of it. You can agree or disagree. These are just my thoughts today. Maybe you can relate, maybe you can't, maybe you'll have an aha moment, or maybe you'll just be like, it doesn't matter. You don't need to have a wrong or right response. It just is. Peace. Gemini speaks, boom, 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 boom,